Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us here this afternoon. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Sophie. I work in the sales team here at ROL Cruise. It's amazing that so many of you have joined us to explore this unique opportunity to be able to hear from the experts at HX this afternoon. We're joined by Tudor and Alex, who are going to talk us through all things Northwest Passage this afternoon. We welcome any questions, and we will hold a Q&A at the end of the session as well. We do have some incredible voyages on offer for 2026. And if anyone is desperate to get away any sooner, we also have 2025 available as well. So I cannot wait to learn all about the Northwest Passage with you this afternoon. So that's all from me for now, and I'm going to hand over to Tudor and Alex.
Tudor, are you still there? He disappeared. He'll be back in a moment, I'm sure. It's funny timing. We'll let the suspense build.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Tudor. That was funny exit.
I'm on it.
Good.
The technology. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No. It's all part of the expedition mindset.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Just sharing my screen now to show you all some pictures, and then we'll get going. There we go. Are we seeing the right thing, Alex? Maybe you could confirm.
Yep. Looks great, Tudor.
Fantastic. Yeah, these things are sent to test us. But thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. We aim, between Alex and myself, to talk through all things Northwest Passage. Aim to talk for about 35 minutes to allow you some time for questions at the end. If you do have questions as we go through the webinar, then either please feel free to put them in the chat session, and the team behind the scenes will field them to us at the end. But of course, after the event, there's also the team at ROL who will be able to field your questions. As way of introduction, my name's Tudor Morgan. I am a HX ambassador. I've been working with HX or Hertogruppen Expeditions prior to HX for the last about 15 years, and been involved in the polar regions for about 30, and I've been lucky enough to sail through the Northwest Passage myself, so that was been very exciting. We will try and stick to time, but as you'll probably realize, Alex and I are rather fond of the Northwest Passage, so I'll try and keep us on track. Over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Tudor. Pleasure to be here, everyone. My name's Alex, and I'm the Chief Expedition Officer at HX. So me and my team are responsible for voyage design, destination strategy, and really structuring the incredible experiences that those who travel with us get to enjoy out there in the wilderness. I've been standing in the shadows of industry titans like Tudor for a few years now. I'm coming up on 20 years in the expedition cruise industry. Had the great privilege of spending a large portion of that time exploring destinations with close to 200 expeditions, including 14 to the geographic North Pole. And I've can say unequivocally that the greatest honor has been sailing through the Northwest Passage, which I've done over a dozen times over about 10 or 15 years. So it's a destination that's very, very close to my heart, and I'm excited to share it with you.
Excellent. So what we thought we'd do in terms of agenda, we'll start off just talking about HX and what makes HX and our itineraries and different. I know you're all on the call, our cruise specialists, your cruise advocates with as ROL customers, but we'll talk a little bit about HOX before we dive deeper into the destination. So Alex, I'll hand over to you on this one.
Yeah, this is a great place to start, which is how we describe the HX experience, and particularly how it relates to the combination of the destination, the ships that we operate, and the experience that we provide. So the way we like to phrase it is the perfect balance. And what this is an uncompromising approach to the experiences we offer, where you don't have to sacrifice anything on the dimensions of adventure, comfort, or sustainability. So the adventure is all about the destination, It's about what you do when you get off the ship. It's about getting out there and exploring and learning. Comfort is about the shipboard amenities. It's about the skill of our incredible captains and team members. It's about an elevated but informal atmosphere. And our ships are perfectly designed to excel in this area. And the final dimension, which is not insignificant, is giving you the peace of mind that comes with traveling with the industry leader in sustainability. So this is sustainability, everything from emissions to waste management. But as we'll dive into, it's also about valuing the relationships we have with the people who live in these destinations and have called, amongst them and their ancestors, called these destinations home for thousands of years. And that really combined is the clearest and cleanest way to express the HX experience on whole.
Absolutely. And for our voyages in the Northwest Passage, our two sister ships do these trips, MS Roald Amundsen and MS Fridtjof Nansen. Of course, we mentioned the sustainability, but purpose-built hybrid vessels with the incredible relaxed comfort on board. These are just some sort of snapshots of what the suites, the cabins look like from a trip. Obviously, there's lots of information on the web about the ships, but this will just give you a little flavor of where you may be enjoying the incredible Northwest Passage from. And then we've changed to all-inclusive, Alex. What does that mean?
It means that you don't have to worry about what investments you're going to make while on board. Everything's included, and that extends also to the activities that we offer off the ship as well, with every day, sometimes multiple shore excursions or community experiences are part of that journey at no additional cost to you. I will say, if I'm just thinking back to the ships that you showed to, that just came to me. You were the expedition leader on board Amundsen a few years ago when she sailed through the Northwest Passage. I was on board Nansen last summer, and looking at this slide, one of the things that stood out to me was the incredible connectivity that I had on board Nansen. I was taking video calls in between excursions, and the Starlink connection that ship had is completely revolutionary. The first time I sailed through the Northwest Passage was, I think, in 2009 on a Russian icebreaker, and they were still printing emails from the radio officer's room and delivering them by hand to your cabin. So this is a new era of exploration, and I'm sure you've got some memories to share on that regard as well.
That's good. So sometimes it's too good when you want to hide away.
Yeah.
The boss is calling. Oh no. Yeah, that's great. But then to guide you on the trip, then we do have obviously incredibly experienced and qualified navigators in the bridge teams. Our hotel teams look after your every need and comfort in the food and beverage department, and also your cabins. But we also have an expedition team comprising at least, or in the region of 22 people. These are specialists in whether it be biology, ornithology, environmental science, climate change, history, a really important part in the Northwest Passage. We're going to talk a lot about our cultural ambassadors and our relationships with the cultures, the culture and the communities. We also, our guides are really sort of there for you and to facilitate that maximum in-depth immersion in the destination. So it really, the aim is to get you out there and get you to understand the destination. But moving on from those, and we'll bring you out lots of these different aspects as we talk about the Northwest Passage. Alex, what is the Northwest Passage?
I would say unequivocally, it is the most exclusive route in all of expedition cruising. I mean, this is the pinnacle journey that really puts you into the history books. Without getting too much into the details, one way I like to describe it is that there are 7 variations of ways to go through the Northwest Passage, and the route that we take in either direction recreates the same route that Roald Amundsen took when he became the first European in history, or human being, to sail through the Northwest Passage in 1903 to 1906. And in history, there are fewer people that have had the privilege of sailing through that exact route than have stood on the summit of Mount Everest. So when you're sailing along this journey, you really take a moment to pause and consider what you've accomplished in your life to be there, how far you've come, and what an incredible, unique experience you're having. But Tudor, I'll throw it back to you. You're very modest. You're very modest, and you probably won't tell people that you're a recipient of the polar medal from.
You don't have to tell people that as well.
The Queen. But I'm curious, as someone from the UK, and with all the history of exploration here, how did it feel for you sailing through this route?
I mean, again, I think, as you said, it's just real privilege to be able to do it. And with the UK and the sort of holy grail of finding that sea route from the Atlantic to the Pacific, that started all the way back with the foundation of the Hudson Bay Company. Their charter was to actually partly find a route through to ease trade with the West, from east to west. But with that, and then as the Hudson Bay obviously didn't find a route overland or find a mystical river that went through, then the expeditions of Franklin, and then the follow-up from Franklin trying to find those. And as you go through the voyage, either way, but when I we went from the Greenland side through to Alaska, and I don't know if you can see on the mouse I'm trying to follow there, Beechy Island, you visit some of the graves of the Franklin party, and then the ships were lost, and there was so much unknown about the expedition. But the ships have recently been found down here below Johaven, the Erebus and the Terror. There's lots of talk that, of course, that the Inuit knew exactly what had happened, but of course they weren't trusted by Western explorers. But that whole follow-up of that expedition and the route that we follow, and then as we continue through, following in the footsteps of Amundsen, and then the likes of Rasmussen, who sledged through in the 20s, it's just just that whole journey is absolutely incredible. Obviously, we mentioned that our ships, we do an east to west route and also a west to east route. There's pros and cons of both, but honestly, the one you're on is the best one. But we wanted to share some sort of pictures and stories of the scenery, because we all love pictures. When we're in the Northwest Passage, I think the thing, maybe I will just go back to this as I've got control of the screen. Alex, when I asked Alex what the Northwest Passage is, then we mentioned it's the sea route, but it's a labyrinth. The Eastern Canadian section, the Canadian Arctic archipelago, is a labyrinth of islands, and that's why it was so hard to find ways through channels that were free of ice to get through, and why it took so long until Amundsen did it, and why so few people can do it now, because it's still, although it is well charted, it is a sea route, but it does provide that. But when we talk through the following slides, you'll sort of realize that the change and the journey in the topography from east to west and the different areas is really dramatic. And that's part of the journey as well. So apologies for jumping back and forth, but I just sort of wanted to make that point. Alex, how about you carry on?
Yeah, no, I think to emphasize the connection to history, I'd say this voyage, more than any other, provides an amazing distribution of experiences. You get incredible landscapes like what's showing here, and icescapes, what's showing here in the picture. We'll talk probably a little bit about sea ice later, which is a whole other dimension. You've got wildlife. I mean, when I was on board Nansen last summer, there was a 1 week period where we saw 15 polar bears. You get culture, incredibly dynamic and resilient Inuit culture that's thriving in that area, and then you get this connection to history. I mean, everything's so well preserved up there. You're hearing the stories while living it.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, And that contrast between that bare land, there is life on land, but there's very little green. It's raw landscape that is snow covered most of the year. But when we go through, of course, it's the peak of the season, and when as we said, we will talk about ice, but that time period where we really, for navigation is that peak summer with the lowest ice conditions. So it's really that opportunity, but of course there is lots of ice. That contrast between icebergs, the bare land, really sort of stand out for me. Alex mentioned culture. This photo here is at Joe Haven, as the Canadians call it, named after the ship Joa. So the Norwegians hate it that the Americans call it Joe Haven, but that is the ship MS Roald Amundsen in the background. This is where Amundsen himself spent his first winter. It took Amundsen 2.5 years to get through back to Nome for complete transit. We aim to do it in just over 20 days. So that experience and the length of time is sort of real highlights to me, as well as part of that journey and the capabilities we have now. Of course, part of Amundsen experience was really learning from the local communities and that living with the communities and how to survive off the land. And much has been written about Franklin and how they went in with this sort of siege mindset of the Royal Navy, that they were going to conquer the Northwest Passage, which not necessarily understanding and living off the land, they sort of paid the price for not necessarily working with the locals. So those relationships, I think, are really important. And with that, we work really closely for us, work with the communities and the locals. And I think, part of this is emphasized by this slide, which Alex, you're sort of really into. Well, no, we're both into the community aspect, and that's really rich and rewarding. But can you tell us a little bit about this group?
Yeah, this was actually on board Amundsen last summer during her Northwest Passage voyage, and we've really tried to carry forward that legacy and be inspired by Amundsen as one of the first Europeans to identify the ingenuity and capability of the local people. So we have the highest representation of community members on board our ships. These are movie stars, politicians, authors, artists, and they share the journey with you and help bring the destination to life through their own voices, through their own stories. And on Amundsen last year, there was some people on for certain sections only, but overall there was more than 11 community members who joined and shared in the experiences with our guests, which was really special.
And as part of that, we visit, of course, we visit communities, and you saw in that last slide three communities that we try and visit. Of course, this is an expedition with conditions don't always allow, but of course it's an important part. And although I'm a Welshman, I did have miners, my predecessors, but for some reason I got some tall genes in my family. But hence it's easy to see me in pictures like this. But the warmth of the communities and the kind of love they share when we visit, wanting to share their culture with us, how they live, but also they want to learn from us. So those relationships are really important. And we aim, and we do bring on community elders onto our ships. We bring that relationship to really open up and understand each other and work in partnership. And that's a really important part of working with those. Alex's team has sort of constant communication with the communities, and also how we work on those excursions in these different destinations. The other part is that I think everyone should be aware of the regulation to visit or to go through on a full transit of the Northwest Passage. We need in excess of 80 permissions or authorizations from the ship, through to visitation, through to archaeologists to visit Inuit heritage sites. So we actually have somebody working on this permitting and they've actually already started this year. They start in January for the trips in August, but it's a big process. So what we do is very regulated, and also that relationship and the work we do with the communities is really important with us. I think we're all very aware that you can go to any place once, but we build the relationships with these communities to be able to go there year after year, and also seeing some of the people thrive. And I know that we've got a picture of that in a minute. Alex can tell us a story. One of the things which Alex has really already brought out is, that history, the community, the landscape is a really important part. Wildlife is, of course, very important. But the wildlife, if you've done other voyages in other areas like Antarctica or go to South Georgia, the wildlife is there, but it's a lot more sparse. So seeing wildlife, you really have to be looking, you have to be really aware, and the glimpses are shorter. But as Alex mentioned, seeing 15 polar bears in one day is really incredible. These are some of the species you may see, but just to be aware, infamous narwhal, they are incredibly shy creatures. So seeing a narwhal would be a really incredible experience. I've only ever seen one in my life, which I was incredibly lucky. But the rest of these beautiful creatures here, it is possible to see. But this isn't a wildlife intense voyage. So just sort of making you aware of that, but there is wildlife to be seen. Is that fair enough, Alex?
I think you've captured it really well there, Tudor.
Excellent. Then in terms of, we were sort of talking about those interactions with with the community members. Do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, and I think this complements the wildlife slide and some of the scenery and history that we talked about before, because this voyage is really a combination of a number of really powerful elements. And this kind of illustrates, this is the community of Pond Inlet. So over the 23-day voyage, we visit 4 communities. So it's a small portion of the overall experience, but it's one that can be quite powerful. Other components are wildlife, history, the landscapes. And in this picture, you can really get a sense for how frontier these communities are. Pond Inlet's around 1,500 people, not connected to anywhere by a road, and the people who are able to visit these communities are really invited to form special relationships and contribute and learn from and share with these communities. So last summer, I visited Pond Inlet. I've spent a number of years visiting the community, and if you go to the next slide. These are 2 of my friends and contacts, Michael and Mariah. They are from Pond Inlet. They're both Inuit leaders emerging in the community, who we bring into conversations around planning, around storytelling. And you can see the smiles on all of our faces. But one of the reasons I'm smiling so much is I arrived with the guests, and Michael came down. And if anyone spent time in Canada on the call, a really Canadian institution is Tim Hortons coffee. And this is the northernmost Tim Hortons in the world. And Michael came running down to the dock, and as I got off the Zodiac, he handed me this steaming hot cup of Tim Hortons coffee, which you can see there on the right. And it's these, you're at the ends of the earth, and you're being greeted in this way. And of course, there's a number of community members there who open their arms and their homes to our guests to share a day of learning and camaraderie. And this is the difference. I mean, there's a lot of companies that won't talk about this. They won't emphasize this. This is the sort of stuff that kind of stirs your heart and your mind. I mean, I find when I travel, no matter where I go in the world, I want to feel welcome. I want to feel like I'm part of something that's meaningful, and relationships like this are a big part of that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that warmth that we have and those relationships that we build, even without a Tim Hortons, are really important. And I think those that are fortunate enough to be able to go back and forth, when you're greeted with a big hug when you get off the Zodiac, the small boats at the beach, I think it sort of goes to show that just the warmth of the connections and the relationships we have with the communities. But Alex, you fly around a bit as chief expedition officer, and you looked out the window once, and this is what you saw.
Yeah, this is actually. Some people ask, like, what's it like to be a chief expedition officer? Like, what's your day-to-day like? This was actually a flight I took from Munich to Vancouver, and I happened to be sitting in a window seat, and I woke up from a slumber or sending some emails or something. I looked out my window, and this is what I was staring down at. This is the northern tip of Baffin Island. Beautiful sunny day, and immediately I got my camera out. I got my GPS out. I started checking the digital charts that I had on my computer and making annotations to the images that I was taking. But it gives you a sense of what the landscape is like up here. I think the person sitting beside me on the plane thought I might be some sort of spy. Very strange behavior, but I was spying on behalf of our future guests, because we refer back to things like this, and the years and for us, Tudor, decades of experience we have up here is something that leads the curation of the voyages that our guests get to enjoy.
Oh, absolutely. But what a shot! What a shot out of a plane window! Magic day. Yeah. And then of course we mentioned very much the contrast. This is, and you could see from Alex's aerial slumber photo, the contrast with glaciers. There's still glaciers in place. There's still that ice pouring down. The geology is raw, exposed, so you can see all that. So the geological interpretation of the land is very important. You get to places more over into the west. This is a place called Smoking Hills. It's very sacred for the local communities. So we're able to do small boat cruising there. But this is a lignite that's been smouldering away for centuries. So it's an incredible place. The smell when you come here is amazing. But to see a cliff basically on fire is really, really something else. One of the activities, again, we talked about ice, and we're one of the things we do, if there's potential for us to be able to walk on water. And actually this is a voyage on MS Fram. You see a slightly smaller ship in the background back in 2018, where they did a ice landing, where there was a sort of opportunistic, some ice flows that the expedition team thought this was okay, and we took all the guests out onto the sea ice, which is a pretty weird experience, especially when these are free ice flows. Of course, safety and security is an important part, but with the currents, the ice flow in this case was moving at about 5 knots down the channel, with the ship slowly following behind as we rotated guests on and off the ice flow. But again, one of those magical experiences that can be given. Not always, but it's one of the things of operating in the polar regions that if we manage to do it, we will. We did talk about ice. Ice comes in a number of different forms, from freshwater ice, glacial ice, which you can see are these big jagged bits, which they move around. They can really damage a ship. Both Amundsen and Nansen are Polar Class 6 vessels, so they're reinforced hulls to enable us to navigate through ice. But these hard growlers or mini icebergs are like big blocks of concrete. And remember, these ones about 7/8 under the water, so we're seeing small parts above, but there's lots below. The other ice, these flat bits are frozen sea ice, so salt water, and they tend to be a little bit softer. But in the winter, all the channels, particularly in that area in the Canadian archipelago, tend to freeze over. It's called fast ice, and that becomes a solid area of ice. So the timing that we choose, and Alex and his team and our itinerary planners choose to do these itineraries, is the optimal time when the decrease of ice allows the channels to open up. There is thought that with climate change that the ice is now more mobile and more affected by wind. But ice is very much part of the Northwest Passage voyage and part of the Northwest Passage story, of course, with the likes of Franklin getting iced in, Nansen taking 2.5 years, Rasmussen sledging taking 3 years to sledge with dogs through the whole Northwest Passage. So it's very much part of the story and the makeup of the journey. So really, really important part of that. But we do monitor the progress of the breakup every year to make sure we can get through and get you to the destination safely. Anything you'd like to add on ice, Alex? I know ice is nice. We both love ice, so we could talk about it forever.
I love ice. I'm just thinking back to last summer on Nansen. There was one evening when we were transiting towards Joahaven, and you could feel in the dining room the ship was starting to rumble. And we went out on deck, and you had these like majestic spotlights just piercing through the darkness, looking forward, and these intermittent kind of snow squalls, and the captain was navigating so gracefully through the ice. But you got a sense of the power of the destination, and it was very evocative. You could feel the cold, you can see what the atmosphere was doing, and the ship would hit a big piece and shake a little bit and push through. And for those few hours, you felt like a real explorer. That is the apex of the Northwest Passage, and these ships and our company legacy are perfectly built for it. And it was just a very special moment.
And this is, although we visited a few communities and they're served by aircraft, this is remote. We're at the top of North America. It is remote. There's not many people around, so you really do get that sense of wilderness, remoteness, and also how people survive and live there. It's fascinating. Of course, one of the things, this voyage is a long voyage. We do the nature landings, we do the visits to the communities, so we keep you active. But there is quite a bit of time on board. During that time, we use it wisely in terms of educating, talking about projects. We have a professional photographer to assist you in your photography, but also to get a good record of the trip. At the end of the trip, we share a logbook with you that has the sort of key information, but it also has a slideshow of the best parts of the voyage. So you'll get that. One of the things that's really important to us and very dear to our hearts is the science and education program. Part of that is we've fitted our ships with purpose-built science centers. You can see a bit here in the top right-hand side, where we collect samples as we go through the voyage. We share with you every day when we're doing landings, or cruising. We run a science boat so we can look at the makeup of the water, the phytoplankton. We can look at rock samples. We have sample sets of things. So we very much keep you busy and aim to sort of open your eyes, not to just being a destination in the Northwest Passage, but for you to understand more of the natural sciences and the background to the sort of history of their exploration. So that's a sort of a key part, as well as the big thing that we mentioned at the start is the cultural ambassadors that we have on board that are sharing their experience of how life is up in the far north. And anything more from your experiences, Alex? I know you're fresh off Nansen from last year, and that really sort of any highlights?
I just find a super impressive part of both Amundsen and Nansen are these science centers, the beating heart of the ship. The expansive. I mean, this isn't a few microscopes in a corner like some companies have and promote their scientific credentials. This is dozens of microscopes and screens and specimens. Actually, we have a replica narwhal tusk in the science center, very relevant to the region. Yeah, 2. And we had some visitors come on board from Joahaven, some locals, and I actually got them to pick up the narwhal tusk, and I said, "Do you think this is real or not?" And these are hunters who go out, in search of narwhal, and they guessed it was real, so it was a perfect replica. But yeah, after all the excursions and throughout the day, it's always a place where you can find and connect with other people. It's a big part of the learning journey. There's a fantastic amenity on board the ships.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's brilliant. But of course, to get you to and from the on the voyage, we have these gateway ports. Nuuk is a sort of a new gateway port for us, and then of course Nome. Alex, there's a photo of you looking very happy with our CEO. What's going on?
Super happy. This is a pivotal moment for Greenland for many reasons, but the end of last year, November 28th, Greenland opened their first international airport, which is designed for tourism purposes, and that's flying into the capital of Nuuk there. You can see in the top left. And we were super honored to be the only expedition cruise company to be invited on that first flight. So you can see me with our CEO, Gebhard, there, who has had a full page spread in the newspaper the next day. And in the bottom left, we've got Lali, our product manager for Greenland, who lives in Nuuk. She's from Nuuk. And so we're kind of on the forefront of this. So the Northwest Passage has never been more accessible. This optimizes the itinerary by at least 4 days to be able to start in Nuuk and dive right into all the incredible experiences on the Canadian side. But depending on which way you could start in Nuuk, end in Nome. You can start in Nome, end in Nuuk. Tudor, you've spent a lot of time up in Nome. What's that town like?
Yeah, it's one of these incredible frontier towns with, and you steeped in the history from gold panning, and you still get prospectors there sitting at the bars, being broke or not having a success, moaning about the new taxes for panning. Through to a lot of history with the Iditarod dog race, which of course started as a way to bring medicines to Nome. There's still not the connection by road, so it really feels like you're out there. It's definitely, unlike Greenland, it's definitely America, the development there, but does really feel like you're really on the edge of the world. And of course, all these coastal towns, very much maritime climate, affected by the wind. But yeah, really, really incredible place to be. And I think our voyages, start and end. If you start the voyage in Nome or finish in Nome, then we take you down to Seattle. So there's opportunities, I think, in all our voyages. Not just the Northwest Passage, to be able to explore the gateway ports or the starting points to have time there to really sort of enjoy those. That we recognise they're long voyages, but also you're travelling a long way to start and finish the trips.
Yeah, and I'll add, Tudor, just to that. You're very appropriate to point out that you don't have to get yourself to Nome. You get yourself to Seattle. We'll take you to or from Nome, and on the Nuuk side, you can join from either Copenhagen or Reykjavik, and we're strategic partners with Greenland's national airline, Air Greenland, and so it's a fantastic and very culturally relevant experience, even getting to that fantastic gateway port.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to hand back to the team. I'll stop sharing screen to field questions. Sophie, anything come through?
So yes, the first question we've had is, what level of fitness and mobility do you recommend passengers to have in order to get the most from their expedition?
For me, one of these it's one of those questions. The majority, or virtually all the excursions, if you like, off-ship excursions, are based from small boats. So as part of that, our ships are purpose built, so we have very easy access to our tender platform to get you on and off the ship. There are always a team there to help you in and out of the boats. When you go in and out of a boat, you've got to obviously go down there and sitting down on the chamber of the boat and then sliding in and out. So the mobility, if you can stand, get yourself in and out of a chair, then that's fine for small boat travel. Then as you get involved in activities, then it's really up to you how much you do, how much do you want to do, how far do you want to walk. So that you are your sort of own level on that. Alex, what's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I like what you said about at your own level. So the Northwest Passage is a voyage. It has lots of great opportunities for hikes and getting out there for people who are more activity minded. The seas are quite calm. So compared to Antarctica, where you have to cross the Drake Passage, which can see inclement weather, the waterways are very protected. The other thing I would say from a mobility perspective is the Northwest Passage for an expedition destination is amongst the most accessible, because the voyage itself is such a feature, because the learning, the storytelling, seeing the sights from the ship, and that protection you get from the archipelago. You're not going to landing sites where it's going to be choppy and there's going to be waves most of the time. It's quite tranquil, quite protected, and you can get it in and out easily.
And I think, sort of going back to the perfect balance, our first slide, the one thing I really love about our ships is they're very outward facing. So, we're not sort of, although we've got this beautiful Scandinavian design interior, but the ships, everywhere in the ship, you're looking out. So whether from your cabin, or from the Explorer Lounge, from the Science Center, there's lots of light and visibility. So enjoying the destination from the comfort of the ship is a real part of it, especially when I'm on board, I'm not allowed to drink, but being able to see guests enjoying a cocktail or a gin and tonic as we sail past in from the lounge, I think is it's really popular to just watch the world go by and take it all in comfort. So that's very much part of it. Sophie, does that answer the question, do you think?
It has, thank you. I do have another for you though. Would you say, is it appropriate for guests to take a small gift to the local communities, maybe something that they might not normally have available to them?
I'll hand that to Alex.
Yeah, I would say we do get this question a bit, and what's really meaningful is if people want to bring something that is has a personal connection to the traveler. So something that is representative of where you're from. It could be a magnet or a keychain or a patch, or maybe there's some food you bring, some Marmite from the UK, and you get to taste some of the local Arctic char or salmon, and you have a little exchange. I find those moments really meaningful.
Okay, lovely. I do have another as well. Is a medical certificate required for the Northwest Passage, like we would do for your Antarctica voyages?
Yes, it is. Yeah, because it is so remote, then we do require a medical certificate. And again, to facilitate that, there's options to have that medical certificate, either through your own medical practitioner. It does need to be signed off, or we do offer, so our medical partner, VCAND, offers an online consultation. There's a self-assessment part and then the medical piece. So we can facilitate that to make it easier for you to get that.
Are midges a problem in Greenland in the summer, like they are in Scotland?
That's a very well phrased question. In Greenland in the summer, they can be. In the northwest, especially in southern Greenland, in the Northwest Passage, it's very seldom because it's much further north than the majority of Greenland. There are some sites where, I'd say, of maybe the 100 excursions that I've done in the Northwest Passage, I maybe had one or two where I thought, oh, this is a little different. But the majority of them are unaffected. Would you agree, Tudor?
Yeah, I think, the Greenland part, southern Greenland, then, there's sort of not midges, but big mosquitoes. But in the Northwest Passage, a lot less so. So it is, I think, depending on where you start and finish, but the Northwest Passage, not so much of an issue.
We would recommend to bring a bug net just to have it in your pocket, but almost guarantee that you never have to put it on.
Yeah.
I think that covers all the questions that we've had through. So I really just want to take this opportunity to thank both you, Tudor and Alex, for giving us such a fantastic and inspiring journey this afternoon. And thank you for everyone else for joining us. anyone does have any questions or if they need any further information, please feel free to get in contact with our sales team. Telephone number was included at the bottom of the email which you registered with. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all, and we very much look forward to seeing you on board.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Sophie. Thanks, Tudor.
Thank you. Thanks.